Most of us treat Easter like a finish line. The cross is behind us, the empty tomb, the Lord's risen, and somewhere in the celebration we close the book and we return to ordinary life, carrying the fact of the resurrection without really knowing what to do with it. But the story doesn't end at the empty tomb, right? Something happens after, something the Gospels record with great and deliberate detail, something the church has always insisted that we should sit in rather than just rush past. For 40 days, Jesus, the risen Jesus, remains, not departed, not yet fully gone, present but differently, here but belonging to somewhere else entirely. And those 40 days are not a postscript. They're not filler between the miracle and the ascension. They are, if we will slow down long enough to really receive them, one of the most disorienting, transforming stretches of scripture in the entire New Testament. Because what happens in those 40 days isn't what you'd expect, and that is precisely the point. Think about what the story should look like if you're writing it. Or I'm going to say, if I was writing it, right? The Lord, the one who was handed over, tortured, executed, buried, right? He rises, and now surely comes the moment of vindication, the public moment, right? The demonstration of power that silences every enemy and confirms every doubt. He walks into Jerusalem. He appears before Pilate. He stands in the temple and lets them all see what they did and who he is. That's the story I would write. That's the story that you would probably write if you're being honest. But that's not the story that was written. Instead, we see a garden and a woman who mistakes him for a gardener, a road to a village, and two devastated disciples who walk for miles with a stranger that they don't recognize, a locked room, a beach at dawn, a fire of coals and fish cooking, and a quiet question asked 3 times to a man who denied him 3 times. There's no mention of a public vindication, no domination, no overwhelming display, something completely unspectacular. Still, ordinary meals, conversations, familiar gestures, and usual places. And this is not an accident. If we have the eyes to see it, this is what you get. This is not what you get when the story turns out of drama. This is theology. This is the risen Lord doing something so specific, something that cannot be rushed, something that cannot be manufactured, something that requires exactly this kind of time and exactly this kind of proximity. And he's retraining perception. He's retraining perception. Here's what the Gospels are careful to show about those 40 days. He appears in a room where the doors are shut, and he's seen and then not seen. He's there and then he's not. He walks with people and remains hidden from them. How does that work out? He's touched and yet cannot be held. He's there and he simply isn't there. Without explanation or announcement, he just disappears. This is not resuscitated life. This is not a man who was dead and now is back to normal, resuming where he left off. This is a life that belongs to eternity, brushing up against time. He moves with a freedom that's simply impossible on earth. The barriers of space and time that govern every human life have ceased to govern him, and yet, and this is what the evangelists insist upon, right, with equal force, it's the same Jesus. It's not a vision. People aren't having a vision. This is the real Jesus, not a spirit, not a theological symbol. The same person who walked the roads of Galilee, right? Who called people by name, who broke bread in a particular way that was unmistakably his. Both things are true at once. Fully human, no longer bound. And the disciples are living in the space between those two truths. For 40 days, they're encountering a man who is no longer subject to time, while they themselves are still entirely within it. They see him and cannot predict when he'll come. They speak with him and they cannot hold him. They share a meal with him at dawn, and by the time they process what's happened, he's gone, he's vanished. And this is what's so disorienting. It's meant to be. There's a line in John's Gospel that most people read as comfort. or as gentle rebuff, and they just move past it. Mary Magdalene is at the tomb. She wept all night, and she's looking for a body to anoint, and suddenly there he is. He appears, right? So present, so entirely himself, that when he speaks her name, she recognizes him immediately and reaches for him. And he says, "Do not hold on to me." And this isn't a rejection, it's a revelation. What he's saying underneath these words is this: the way you have known me is changing. The categories that you've used to relate to me, categories of presence, absence, of near, far, of here and not here, those categories are being broken open. And if you hold on to what was, you're going to miss what is. And the 40 days are, in one sense, the long working out of that single moment, over and over and over again, in different ways, in different moments, different people, right? The risen Lord is doing the same thing. He's appearing and disappearing. He's recognizable and unrecognizable. He's present in ways they can't predict and absent in ways that they can't explain. And underneath all of it, the same invitation: learn to see differently. So the problem, it isn't that Jesus is absent from the world. The problem is that we are trained to look for him only in the ways that belong to time, only in the expected places, only in the forms that we can control and predict and return to when we need them. That is why they miss him on the road to Emmaus. 2 disciples walking with him for miles. I mean, this wasn't just a slow jaunt round the corner. They were walking with him for a long time, talking about him, and they cannot see him. Not because he's hidden exactly, but because he's present in a way that they have no category for. And when they finally recognize him, it's not through argument or explanation, it's through the breaking of bread, a gesture, something so particular, so unmistakably him, that death itself has not altered it. Everything he ever was has come through resurrection, unchanged but transfigured. Now, I want to press this past the historical and into the personal, because these 40 days are not just about what happened to the disciples after Easter, right? They are the shape of your life with God right now. For me also. Have you ever had the experience of sensing that he's near and not being able to locate him? That something was happening, but you couldn't name it. That he was present, but not in the way that you expected, not through the means that you'd prepared, not in the moment that you designated, right? That is not absence. It's not spiritual failure. That is the beginning of learning to see in a different way. And he's a good teacher. He's a perfect teacher. The Christian life is not a life of waiting for eternity to arrive. It's the life lived at the threshold of it. 1 foot still in time, in your schedules and your limitations and the weight of ordinary days, already rooted though in something that time cannot contain. This is the tension that we're called to live in. Most of us are living as though eternity is a destination somewhere ahead down the road after all of this, right? After the hard season, after the breakthrough, after we die. But the 40 days say something very different. They say that eternity is not ahead of you, it is around you. The risen Jesus is not somewhere else. He is here. Come on. Moving through the locked doors of whatever room you're in. Present in the ways your ordinary perception keeps missing. The question the 40 days ask is not, do you believe he rose? The question is, are you learning to recognize him? There's one more thing the 40 days reveal. And it may be the most personally significant of all. When Jesus enters his glorified existence, he takes everything with him. Not just his divinity, not just his spirit, everything. His humanity, his history, his earthly life with all its particular weight and texture, his passion and his death. The wounds are still in his hands. He bears them to this day, right, in his glorified body. Think about what that means. The marks of the worst thing that ever happened to him, the most violent, unjust, devastating thing. They were carried forward into eternity, not erased, not left behind at the tomb like the burial cloths. They were taken up, transfigured, made somehow part of his glory. Because God does not delete the past, he transfigures it. Everything that has been remains in eternal form. Every moment of his earthly life, every encounter, every word spoken, the words that he spoke over broken, frightened human beings, all of it gathered up and held now in the life of God, fixed in unchanging reality, then and now and forever. And if that is true of him, it is true of you. The things you've been through, the places of failure and grief, the seasons that felt like far countries, right? The weight that you carried that arrived without your consent, none of it is gone. None of it is wasted. All of it is available to be taken up, transfigured, carried forward into something you cannot yet see the shape of. And he's not managing your past from a distance. He's deciding. He's not deciding what to keep and what to discard. He's not, working his way through all of that. He is gathering it, all of it, to himself. To himself. So the 40 days end. He's taken up, and the disciples are left standing looking at the sky. But they're not the same people who stood at the tomb 3 days after the crucifixion, paralyzed by grief, by confusion. Something has happened to them in these weeks. Not a doctrine that's been installed, that they've got their heads round. Not a program that they've completed. Is something slower, more real than that. They have learned, however imperfectly, right, to recognize a presence that does not operate according to the rules they thought governed reality. They have learned that he is not absent when he's not visible, that he's not gone when they cannot locate him, that the life he now lives and the life that he offers them is not bounded by the categories they brought to him. And this is what the church has always lived in, not the memory of a man who once walked on earth, right? The living presence of the one who is no longer subject to the limitations of time and who meets us here in this ordinary moment as you're watching this video, in the breaking of bread, in the spoken name, in the familiar gesture that is suddenly luminous with something we can't explain. He is present. He's always been present. The question is simply whether we're learning to see, learning to recognize, becoming more attentive to his presence. So I want to encourage you, if this content is blessing you and you want to keep going deeper, subscribe if you haven't yet. There's more to walk through together, and I want to keep serving you on that journey. But for now, in whatever ordinary moment that you're standing in right now, he is in it. Open your eyes, because eternal life starts now.